Hi, Sue.
Hi, how are you? Can you hear
Good.
me?
How are you? Yeah.
Yeah.
Is your screen on?
No. I can turn it on now.
No. If I share my screen, can you see it?
Hold on. People won't see. I have when system prompts, click open.
Oh, that's the wrong one. How about now?
Now it has a map.
Has a map. Okay.
Yep.
Perfect. And if I change it, like now, do you see the warrant page?
And yep.
It switched?
Yep.
Awesome. Okay. I'll stop sharing. What time are you thinking, Sue?
I'm gonna go. I don't know. Maybe 8:45.
No,
What do you think?
might be. Yeah, I don't know. That might be pretty close.
Who's the iPhone listening in?
Don't know.
Mm.
Good evening, Peter. Good evening, Sue.
Hey, Phil.
Pete.
Yep.
Will either you or Russ do the same thing you did last time, please?
Yes, for the roll call vote.
Yes, please.
Yep, I'll do that.
Yeah, Peter, if you wouldn't mind handling that, that would be great.
Sure.
Awesome. Thank you. How was everybody this evening?
Good.
Good.
So far, no complaints.
Yep.
A little too hot this summer, though.
Hotter the better.
Nope.
Not for me.
Yeah, I like cold.
You'll get that soon enough, Sue.
Well, that's fine. That's where I'd rather it be.
You'll
Much
be
easier
happy.
to,
Winter
What?
will be here before we know it.
it's so much easier to keep warm than it is to keep cool.
I don't know if that's true. I find myself struggling at work some days to keep warm. It's impossible.
Hmm.
On the and I'm super hot. I remember those cold days.
You guys hear me?
Hi, Paul.
I am on, but same as last time. I got a picture of myself. I don't have any of you guys' pictures, but I got
Okay.
Pete and Sue and Phil up here on my screen.
Well, we can't see you, Paul. Paul, if you move your mouse on the bottom left of the screen, there's a little icon that says stop video. If you start the video, if you click on that, if there's a red line through it, that might turn your camera on.
I don't see it.
For me, it's at the top right-hand corner
Oh. For the view,
for the camera thing.
to start and stop the camera?
Yeah.
Oh, maybe yours is up top, Paul.
Get the. I still don't. I don't see it anywhere. You have it now?
Yep,
There you
there you are.
I don't know what I did. I did something. I got a different screen and it did say it was the bottom left. But I don't have your pictures.
That's
Ours aren't turned on yet.
Oh, I've got the names. I got Phil, Sue, and Peter.
Yep. Yeah, Sue will turn hers on in a minute. There you go.
Hey, there's Peter.
Yep.
Pete, can you see everybody? Because
Yes.
Zach is trying to sign on. Do you see him?
I see, nope.
Okay.
I see Vinny's on.
There's Zach.
Yeah, Zach's just coming on. So we're just missing Jack and Dave, correct?
Seems like it.
There's three of you on, Mr. Chair, if you want to start.
Sure, okay. Well, I'll bring the meeting of August 3rd, 2020 to order. And if we want to start off with anyone here for Commissioners Public Forum, they could speak up. Hearing none, we'll move right on to the minute and warrants and senior abatements. If you could run those down for us, Paul?
Mr. Chair, I would like to make a motion to have the minutes of July 13th approved as written.
Seconded. Bill.
Very good. You like to read those for us?
No, we'll just call for, yeah, I'll call for the vote for you. Mr. Donahue,
Aye.
Mr. Gagner,
Aye.
Mr. Jennings.
Aye.
Great.
Cantwell's here also.
Mr. Cantwell. There's a motion to approve the minutes.
Yeah, I read them over. I agree.
Okay.
All right, moving on to warrants.
Okay, we've got a good list here, Mr. Chair, and I'd like to make a motion to approve the following warrants. Crystal Plant Plumbing and Heating for 59 North Main Street, $500. Veolia, water in, sludge removal encumbered, $6,435. Veolia again, June emergency service, $350. Also encumbered, $707.69. And one more for Veolia, June 60s and 5 West testing, $184. Commissioner salaries, $400. McClure Engineering for waterline construction, $2,632.50. LaForte Electric for 31 Sunset, $200. LaForte Electric for 211 Sunset, $595. Franklin Electric for 3 control panels, $3,133.11. Franklin Electric for float tree and standoffs, $1,362.62. Franklin Electric again, for disconnects, $1,570.69. Advantage Enterprises for tree removal, $2,800. WB Mason for office supplies, $876. Beta for Bufferville.
No. $8.76.
What did I say?
876.
Oh, wow, that's a big error. I'm very sorry about that. I'll stand corrected at $8.76. Beta for work done from May 30th to June 26th, $1,914.58, totaling $22,443.95.
Thank you, Paul. Do we have a second?
Cantwell second.
Thank you. Any questions? Discussion? Hearing none?
Roll call vote. Mr. Donahue,
Aye.
Mr. Gagner,
Aye.
Mr. Cantwell,
Aye.
and Mr. Jennings. Mr. Jennings?
Aye.
All right, perfect.
Moving on, do we have for abatements?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the following abatements. Senior abatements on a flat rate, $377. and 72 cents, and senior abatements on a meter totaling $479.25 for a total of $856.97.
Cantwell, second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none.
Roll call vote. Mr. Donahue,
Aye.
Mr. Gagner,
Aye.
Mr. Cantwell,
Aye.
and Mr. Jennings. Mr. Jennings?
Hear me, Peter?
Yeah, you back? It's your vote.
Aye.
All right,
I am back. Aye.
perfect. All right, next on your agenda,
right.
there's one senior abatement that we just received a little bit late for map block and lot 12B-A-22. If you wouldn't mind making the motion to approve that abatement, we'll be able to keep them added to the list.
Motion approved, Donahue.
Seconded, Cantwell.
Any discussion?
All
Hearing
right,
none.
roll call vote. Mr. Donahue,
Aye.
Mr. Gagner,
Aye.
Mr. Cantwell,
Aye.
and Mr. Jennings.
Aye.
Great.
All right, moving on. Scheduled appointments.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
35.
Yeah, 6:35, we have Veolia. I believe Vinny is here to talk about the MORs for May and June.
Yep.
All right, take it away, Vinny.
All right. So plant personnel in May consisted of myself, Mike Mitchell, Drew Allard. Everybody's fully licensed. There were no safety or health incidents in the month of May. The JJ Keller safety training was on confined spaces. That's an online source we use for our safety training. We had a couple zinc exceedances. Sorry, I printed off the wrong copy here. So the zinc limit is 142. You're gonna have to excuse me. I gotta dig up a different copy.
Cindy, how much time do you need? We can come back to you. We can discuss other business.
Less than 5
How about-
minutes.
What's that?
Less than 5 minutes.
Okay, why don't you let us get into other things, and then when you're ready, interrupt us in between topics, and we'll come back to you.
Thank you.
All right? No problem. Peter, do you want to skip to new business?
If Zach's on the line, he can maybe go over the zinc pilot study, if he wants to give us an update on that.
Okay.
Sure. So, so far we don't have a ton of data. We kind of wanted to get some results first and make sure that the doses that we're doing at are putting us in the right range, and to make sure that the chemicals are working properly, not just with the zinc and copper, but with the other parameters that we test for on a weekly basis. So far, let me bring up the results. So we have, so far we have two rounds of testing that's come back. We have more that we're waiting for. They have been sent out, but like I said, now that we know we're in the right range, we're going to be doing some additional testing, kind of ramping up the testing and fine tuning of the doses to see really where it puts us. Because with this aluminum coagulant, we find that in the beginning you get a certain result, but as you start to build up the aluminum levels in the process, the treatment kind of changes. So we didn't want to load up too much in the beginning with the testing and then find out things have kind of changed. But the first initial testing looks really good. Our limit for zinc is 142, which we're usually around there. And the first zinc result we got was a 37. So that was significantly lower than the limit. The next result we got was a 65.6, also significantly lower, about half the limit. So looking really good so far. The aluminum levels are higher than we normally see with ferric chloride, but that was to be expected. The aluminum results we got for the first day was a 74, and then the next set of results we received an 84. The regular permitted limit is 93, so we are still below the aluminum limit, but we are definitely below I believe we have a no, correct me if I'm wrong, Vinny, but I don't believe we have a daily limit for aluminum at this point in time. I think we just have the monthly average.
Peter, is that?
Or I'm sorry. I think I got it mixed up. We have a daily max, but not a monthly. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So we don't really have to worry about compliance at this point for zinc or aluminum, but as I was saying, we kind of build up some chemical in the system as the testing goes on, and eventually we get to a point where it kind of stabilizes. But we may see that aluminum continue to rise. We're hoping that it kind of flatlines and doesn't go any higher than the limit. That's the ideal situation, but still, regardless, we don't have to worry about the 800 daily maximum limit at the results we're kind of seeing. I don't think we'll get anywhere close to that. But the intent is to fine tune the chemical doses from here, giving us the best zinc result we can get while maintaining an aluminum limit that's below the 93 milligrams per liter, which is the normal limit. So that's so far what we have for testing. But like I said, we'll have a lot more results when they start rolling in, and that's when we'll start fine-tuning the doses and trying to achieve the best of both worlds with the zinc and the aluminum. So, I think that's about it. Vinny, if you have anything to add to that.
I got the correct forms in front of me now. Sorry about that. So back to May's safety training, it was on walking surfaces, and it was hosted by JJ Keller. As far as compliance goes, we did toxicity testing. The plant passed. There were 2 zinc daily max exceedances. The limit is 142. We had a 147 and then a 237. So there's not a whole lot of avoiding that, unfortunately. The monthly average was 192, so that gave us an exceedance on the monthly average also. Copper, there were no daily limit violations. We took 2 samples in the month of May, and when they were averaged together, we ended up with a monthly violation. Some operations and maintenance activities. We replaced a spool piece going into the UV banks. There's a lot of corrosion. The hardware was eaten right away. So we installed Schedule 80 PVC pipe with all stainless steel hardware. It should last a long time. Leading up to that, we were doing some testing and we found out that the caustic was short-circuiting in the UV banks. It was only favoring one channel. So we moved the injection point. We had K&D Tapping come in and tap the pipe for us so we could put a new injector in. The collection system activities, we sampled the MTAs on May 6th and May 24th. We've been having big spikes in alkalinity in the plant. So we started sampling the pump stations to see if we could track down where it was coming from. And the MTAs did have elevated alkalinity, which at that point, it was making the plant run a little funny. Now they're using it all up because traffic seems to be back to normal capacity. We installed the new riser at the library for that grinder pump. We didn't get any good before pictures, but the ground was right over the cover. So the water would run down and just fill right into the tank. So this is what the new riser looks like. Came out pretty good. We made a little gully to get the water away from it. We only had a couple of grinder pump calls in May. 211 Sunset, LaFord Electric upgraded it. And then 85 Lakeview was already a upgraded system, but there was a lot of grease, so we had to have Slims out to clean it. We received 35 dig safes in the month of May. As everybody knows, there's construction everywhere, so we got our share of that. And let's see. There was a sewer leak up on Trolley Crossing in front of Rain for Rent. It was a very minor leak, a little sewage surfaced. The grass got real green where it came up. That's how they noticed it. The contractor that was doing work in the street previously came back to do the repair. They dug up, they found where it was broke. It was a connection that had pulled apart. They put a sleeve where it goes underneath a water main, and they ran the new sewer pipe through the sleeve, so it shouldn't happen again. It was a really nice repair they did. It took them about 2 days to get it completed. That's the end of May. You want to cover any of that stuff, Pete? Or
No, I think that explains it pretty well.
okay.
Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, I'm just curious, we're sort of in between the, we were talking about the zinc project and also what's going on now. Have you noticed any rise in EQFs since you started the project?
With the pack, we've only done a couple of samples. We have about 5 samples out at the lab. We've gotten results on 2 of them. And the results look promising, but we're not going to know for sure until the whole system's saturated with the aluminum.
Yep.
And we're running it for a consistent amount of time. So that's why we're doing the pilot for 2 months, so we can saturate the system with the aluminum and see what happens to all the metals levels.
You're using the 90 now instead of the 70, is that correct?
Excuse me?
Using the PAC 90 or the PAC 70 at this point?
We're using the Epic 70.
Okay, sorry.
We're at a dose of 140 ppmv, and we have not adjusted the dose. We set it up there when we first turned it on. We dialed it in. The first 2 days, we did a few adjustments just to get it where the plant liked to run, and we haven't touched it. We're just letting it run. And now we're going to draw 3 samples per week to see what it looks like.
Sounds good.
Yeah, we should have some good consistent data at the end of this pilot because we're not changing any adjustments. We're just letting it run. So we're going to see whether there's good days, bad days. Yep, there's a nice little graph.
Something else to add is we've seen really good E. coli results since switching over to the pack, and we saw this last time. We feel it has to do with the ferric chloride that ends up coating the UV sleeves. It's kind of a common thing with ferric chloride to have coating on the quartz sleeves. which kind of interferes with the transmittance of the UV. So since we changed over to the pack, we've seen some of the lowest E. coli results that we've gotten in a long time.
Not sure if this would be going off topic or staying on topic, but it's still, we were talking about the zinc sampling process. I was wondering if that's, I've seen the results, I think, but I'm not sure if that's complete. At the different areas, 5 East, 29th Sturbridge Road, et cetera, going down.
So Vinny did 3 samples, maybe already 3 weeks ago now, where he did a Monday, Wednesday, Friday. We got those results, and they really didn't show us too much. So I asked him to continue doing those samples, and we're just waiting for that data to come back. I think by the time we have our next meeting on the 24th, we should have a decent spreadsheet with quite a bit of data to share with you at that time.
Yeah, the question I have on that, because I actually have the data, is are you in that chart, do we have the ability, do we know the flow rate that goes through those systems or not?
Most of those pump stations only have hour meters. So we could possibly guesstimate how many gallons per minute they're pumping and back into a flow, but there is there's no flow meter at most of those pump stations except for 6 West.
Okay, well, I was wondering that from the standpoint of, then you have a correlation that's not just the amount, but you also have the amount versus the flow, which gives
Yeah, that's probably a good idea to get an idea of the overall loading versus a concentration.
correct.
So we can see how much impact it actually has.
Because if you know the hours it was running, and I'm not sure if there's any ways of going backwards, which I doubt, unfortunately. I should have thought of that beforehand. It would at least give you a flow amount or to it, and you can then know where that area is actually coming, not to the concentration, but amount in a time frame.
We can probably get a pretty good estimate based on the run times and what the pump flow capacity is. We have most of that information. Some inaccuracies will occur because the pumps over time become less effective, but it should give us a relative roundabout idea of how much flow they contribute. But I definitely feel like that's something that could be done fairly easy and gives us a good idea.
Yeah, in the final spreadsheet, could that be added in?
Yeah, sure. We'll make sure that gets in there.
Greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
Zach, and John's information he provided, it shows how many gallons per day of pack, and it varies from 18 to 28 gallons per day.
Yes.
When I asked him about that, he said we use approximately twice that much in ferric. Is that accurate?
I'd have to double check. Vinny, do you know if I want to say that the pack dose we're using is a little bit less. I believe we were around 160 for a ferric dose.
We're a
And
little over 30 gallons a day with ferric.
Yeah, so it is a slight
Okay.
reduction.
Okay.
And and it's a little less than 2 gallons a day of the sulfide, which
Right.
would be good because if we have to use it, 4 drums will last us an entire year. So, but yeah, I think the dose is definitely less than what we were using for ferric because the Epic 70 is actually stronger than the ferric was. If we were doing the Epic, what's the other? I'm drawing a blank. I've been away a little bit too long.
50?
The Epic 50 or Epic 48 or whatever it was. That's more similar to what the strength of the ferric chloride is. So the 70 is stronger. So we'll definitely, hopefully, obviously, obviously the amount that we're using is enough for compliance. So if anything, it will probably be back down a little bit as the system gets saturated, because once the system gets saturated, kind of the recycled aluminum in the process kind of continues to do work.
Okay.
So you need less of it as time goes on.
Now,
Once
if we have positive results from this study and decide to go forward with the pack instead of the ferric, are there any changes that will need to be made to the treatment plant in order to make that changeover?
No,
We're gonna
just
have to clean out the ferric tank.
yeah, exactly. Just a really good clean of the ferric tank and the line that feeds from the ferric tank to the day tanks, because
Okay.
the ferric and the pack, when mixed together, kind of gel up. It's not an issue of like off gassing or giving off heat or anything negative. It will gel up and kind of clog up the pumps. So just
But
just a good rinse with water will do it.
good. So there's no large capital costs that we won't need to buy new pumps or anything like that. We can just keep
No.
what we have.
No, not at all. It's pretty much a direct replacement.
Good.
In fact, in Sturbridge, when we were going back and forth doing the similar trials, we were cleaning them and changing back and forth on a regular basis, pretty much.
Okay. So I guess if there's no more questions on the zinc study, we can move on to the, I guess, June MOR.
Okay, in the month of June, the plant's still fully staffed. Everybody's fully licensed. There's no safety accidents or incidents. The annual fire extinguisher inspections were completed. We gathered them all up. They came in, they replaced a couple of them. Kind of standard practice. Safety training was on COVID-19, and this was hosted on Veolia's website called the VNA University, and everybody completed the training. In June, there were 2 E. coli exceedances. We spoke with the manufacturer and kind of came to the conclusion we might need to change the way we were cleaning them. We were just using a commercial grade cleaner to clean the sleeves. So they recommended us using CLR and actually draining the troughs, filling the troughs up with water and CLR and then scrubbing them. So we did all of that. And now once a week we clean the sleeves with CLR, but every day we're hosing out those troughs so there's nothing in there. On the 8th, we received our administrative order because of the zinc permit exceedances. We sent back asking if they could make an adjustment on the aluminum, and they did. They took the monthly aluminum limit from 93 and just put it to report only, which gives us a big window for testing and pack. They also raised the zinc limit from 142 to 204. So that gives us a little wiggle room there. The operations and maintenance. We had some EQ tank pump problems. We had LaFleur Electric in here to troubleshoot them. It was originally looking like it was going to be a VFD, but when he really got into troubleshooting it, he found out it was a motor with a weak winding. So every time it would get under load, it would just kind of shut down. When we pulled it out, we noticed the impellers were also destroyed. There's some good pictures there for you. So one pump was replaced with a new pump, and the other one was replaced with a rebuild pump. So EQ Tank 2, everything's up and running good. Working better than I've seen, so that was good.
Now, Vinny, those motors that the pumps that you replace them with are the ones that the commission authorized you to order a couple
No.
meetings ago. No?
We actually had one brand new one in stock, and there was one rebuilt one here from Zach. So we used
Okay.
both of those up, and then we had asked to order 2 new.
Okay. So you still have 2 spares then?
Can I ask a question? On the grinder pumps, we had ordered some up, those in?
Yes, that's why on the warrant you saw those Franklin Electric invoices.
Yeah, I saw that. I just wanted to make sure they were in. I wasn't sure.
Yes. Yep. Some parts and pieces were. We did one big order, but they seem to be just sprinkling it in based on what they have for inventory.
Yeah, I kind of saw that it looked like it was like half of it. That's why I was asking.
Yeah.
All right, I'm back.
All right,
How
Vinny.
far did you guys hear?
That we still have, like you were going to say, we had 2 left in
No, we have-
inventory.
We have 1 left. We used another one.
Okay.
All right, so then we got to the clarifier issue where we needed to bring that torque tube and have it straightened out. So we
Yes.
brought it down to Niantic, Connecticut, to New England Pump and Valve. They specialize in that type of equipment. They put it in a big lathe, and I have a video of it. It's amazing. You can see how far off it was welded together wrong. And they just cut the face of it so it was square. We brought it back, and we actually installed it ourselves, set it all up, test ran it for a day with no water, and then filled it back up and put it in the service.
Vinny or Zach, are we working with the original manufacturer about getting any type of reimbursement for that?
Honestly, I sent out a couple emails trying to get some response back, and I haven't heard anything at all. But I can give it another shot. I think I had experienced kind of a lack of response before and ended up making some phone calls. So I'll follow up on that. I just kind of slipped through the cracks, but definitely will follow up. I'll make note of it.
Great.
All right, so as in the previous month, we did install another spool piece into the UV banks. There were 2 of them that were bad. So that's a pretty big project. I mean, it takes us 2 days to get it done, and then, it's just a lot of labor to get one of those out of there and put one back in. Everything's got to be unbolted, separated, cleaned thoroughly, and then reassembled. So that was something we wanted to get done, and we did. Let's see. There was a sewer main break on Carpenter Hill Road. We went out and we made the repair, and there was no sewer released. It was all contained in the pipe until the repair was made. All the pump station tests have been completed for the month. The full load generator tests have been completed. MTAs were sampled on the 3rd and 21st. Yeah, there were a lot of wipes in 6 West's wet well. We had to open both of those pumps up and pull them out, and that took the better part of a day to do. It's a lot of manual labor pulling those out of there. They get really stuck in every crevice. Old Worcester Road had a vacuum pump failure. Those stations used the vacuum pumps to pull the sewage up into the volute. So we replaced that vacuum pump. We had a spare one here. Then the generator company came out and did the annual maintenance checks. So they went through all the generators. They made notes of a couple of small problems, and I'm still waiting to hear back on quotes. I've contacted them twice, and I'll call them again this week. As far as grinder pump calls go, we had a busy month. Ed LaForte Electric upgraded a whole bunch of them for us this month. And there was a handful that were just real greasy, and yeah. As you can see, there's just a whole line of them. We also did 33 dig saves this month. And that's about that. Oh, we also cleaned 5 East's meter pit where the flow meter is located. We were in contact with a few different companies trying to get quotes on replacing that. And a few of them said, you know, they really couldn't tell what we were working with because of the condition of the manhole. It's a sewer manhole. I mean, if you can imagine what's in there, that's what it is. So we actually went out the truck and some barrels of water and power washed it, made it look as new as possible. And we ended up having our Fleur Electric contractor come out, and they just repaired what was there, and it seems to be working good since then. That's the end of June's MOR.
Can I ask a question on the sewer break? You said it was happening during installation of a new drainage line on Carpenter Hill. Who's installing? What was the cause there?
The town was.
Okay, just trying to figure it out a little bit more in depth.
Are there any other questions on the MOR? Or for Zach or Vinny?
Just
Mr. Chair,
something-
if you're
Just
still
something
on.
just
I'm
something to add.
still here. No questions here on my end. Thank
All right.
you, Zach, Vinny.
Zach, did you want to add something?
I was just gonna say that, you know, Veolia is pretty well on top of the possible storm where they're forecasting tomorrow. So checking in fuel levels and generators and everything, making sure we're all good to go. Everything's batten down the hatches for any high winds or whatever we might experience.
All right.
Thank you
Excellent.
in advance for a problem-free zone down there at the plant.
Don't jinx us.
All right. I think we can move on, Mr. Chair.
All right, so 7 o'clock appointment, Spada.
Yes, I believe Mr. Mackey is on to run us through what Beta's been doing, and also Mr. Newton is on regarding the scope of the water supply development. Hi, Bob.
Good evening. Good evening, Peter. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Hello, everyone.
Good evening, gentlemen.
So, yeah, I guess there's 3 parts to what we'll talk about with you this evening. The first 2 have to deal with the site and the water main, and then the last will be the permitting effort that we're doing on the new wells. So, Pete, why don't we start with, well, actually, what do you want to start with? Do you want to start with the road or the water main?
We can start with the road, the access road.
Okay.
I'll just kind of try and throw that up there if everyone can see it who's on the computer. And if Bob, if you just want to speak to kind of what we've done, maybe talk about what we're looking at for, I guess, the cut in the Wellfield site, how much material it'll take, how much material we're going to use to fill to make the road, and then how much excess material we'll have after.
I don't know if can you see my pointer, or do I have to request?
I think you'll just have to tell me where to point.
Okay. All right. Just start up at Gale Road.
Yeah.
So the roadway is going to begin there. It comes down between the 2 private properties. At the end of that parcel to the right is where we're thinking about putting the pumping station. So the pumping station will go somewhere in that vicinity. The wells are down at the other end of the roadway. It almost looks like a little cul-de-sac at the end, and there's a number of wells. Our initial thoughts are that the wells will have internal pumps that will lift it up to the station, and then the station will then take it all the way into the system. The roadway roughly follows a contour, so that's why it sweeps the way it does. We're looking right now to bring the site of where the wells themselves are down about 20 feet. And to make the grades work from Gale Road down to where the wells are, it's looking to be about 37,000 cubic yards of material that'll be excavated. So that's kind of where we are at the moment. We do have, right about where your cursor is, stop right there, we do have two places where we're going to have to drain the roadway because we're essentially creating a bowl with the cut. So that's one location right there. And then further south down to the wells, there's one, yep, right there just before. So that's what our preliminary thought is on that. Pete, I was wondering, actually, are you around tomorrow? I'd like to have a conversation with you just to kind of go through the fine details of this. Are you
Yes,
around?
definitely. Sure.
Okay, so maybe mid-morning.
Yeah.
But right now, this is what we're looking at. Gravel is what we've been talking about for the surface. And then a swale will be running parallel to channel the flow, mainly because of the steepness of the road. So, and we'll get a little bit of stormwater treatment as it's flowing through. There'll be grass swales. And then down at the wells site themselves, it makes that little kind of on the north side of that cul-de-sac there. It sweeps up a little bit just to pick up that last well. So those are where all the wells are. They'll be piped together more or less in a manifold. And then the water main itself will just follow the roadway up to the pumping station. And then from there, we'll leave the site and start our voyage up into town. So any questions about where we're going with that roadway right now?
What do you think the max grade is on that roadway right now?
Actually, Pete, if you scroll down, I think there's a profile. Yeah, right there. So those are the grades that we're thinking about right now.
Mr. Jennings is on a cell phone.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So that first
percentage?
one is, I think it's at 9% or 6%, right to the left there, Pete. Yeah, right there. Yeah, 9% would be the max.
Perfect. All I wanted to know.
Okay.
Sounds good.
It's primarily cutting. There's a little bit of fill. So as you're coming across, you see a little bit of cutting and a little bit of filling right in that area. But then as we turn toward the wells, you'll see we drop down. That's where the bulk of the cutting is happening.
Yep.
And again, so the final elevation is approximately 540, correct?
That's correct.
And that still leaves us about 11 feet over the Army Corps' flood and inundation level of 529.
Yes,
So there should be plenty of safety built into that.
exactly.
How deep are you looking at having to put these wells?
So initially we were approximately 75 feet to groundwater. And I think Peter Newton's on, I think we were setting the screens for the pumps at like 105 or 110 feet, correct?
Yeah, I think 112 to 102. So about 100, round numbers, 110 feet below the existing grade.
So if we take 20 feet off of the top of that hill, we'll reduce each well by 20 feet. So instead of being 110 feet or 100 feet, we'll be 90 to 80 feet deep for setting the pump.
And how high does that put us above the highest level recorded on the overflow on the lake?
Puts us 11 feet.
11 feet.
That's the inundation level. I don't,
Yeah.
has it ever been reached?
No. No, I don't believe it. No, because there'd be homes underwater if they had to reach
Right,
that. If
so
they had
it's-
to go to full flood level, there would be homes underwater around Buffinville.
It's probably a
that has never
500-year
been reached.
storm. It'd be, yes, it'd be
Yep.
quite the event.
It'll probably happen this month.
It will happen in 2020.
Unfortunately, you're probably right. All right, so if there are no other questions about the access road, maybe we could jump over to the water main.
Sure.
So this is the water main. It's obviously very high. It's preliminary at this point, but we're looking at about a little over 17,000 feet of main to get us to the system. The pumps will actually have to push it about 5 miles to get to the tank. So the tank overflow is about 1,005. Groundwater table is in the around 500, a little bit less. We were looking at about 450 feet of static push to get it up and into the tanks. That'll result in the pressures down there near the lake. You're looking at probably about 200 PSI in those mains. I mean, the other option is we could lift it up to where the system begins, but that would mean we'd have 2 stations. So we were trying to see if we can get away with just 1 station for cost savings. But everything in red would be the new main, and then the white is the existing system. And the tank that we're essentially driving it to is up at the top of the screen. I think it's actually
Right here.
Yes, right there, exactly. So that's where we're driving it to ultimately.
So what do you think the pressure would be at Oxford Road at the intersection where the water intersects the existing water line now?
That's a good question. We have the profile. I think it's on another figure there. Pete, I believe. I don't know if it's on that. I don't think it's on that figure. There's another one that should have the
I think these are the
profile.
only 2.
Okay, then I probably didn't bother giving you the other one. I'm sorry, I'll have to get back to you on that one. I don't have it right in front of me. If
I guess
that's okay.
the only other possibility to consider would be to pump it out instead of making a left onto Oxford Road. You could make a right onto Richardson's Corner, pump it out to Route 20, and get it to our existing pump station there on Route 20 that was designed to pump from Oxford up to the rest of our system on Route 20 to our tank.
Oh, through the dry main?
Yes, so that way there we'd have to activate that main to get the flow to our tank.
Right.
Granted, that pump station will probably need to be rehabbed before it's used, and it will add quite a bit of distance. I think it adds maybe 2 to 3 miles of main, maybe not that much, maybe 1.5 miles to 2 miles more of main versus going to our current infrastructure on Oxford Road.
Right.
I
mean,
so
the
again,
nice part about going that way, you're bringing all that pipe back into service. That's
Yes.
empty.
Right.
That's the same pipe we had concerns about because of the corrosion, so that would have to be looked at too, Peter, beforehand, correct?
Most definitely. We're going to be looking at that regardless, so we'll hopefully have an answer for that before we move forward with a final decision here.
The nice thing about going up Richardson, it looks like it would give you a secondary loop if necessary. So, if there was ever a problem over at Buffin's side, you could open it up to the switch side and still feed the whole loop.
So I guess procedurally, if there's no big red flags that you guys see, I'd like to take this information that we have between, I guess the initial part that we discussed here is kind of a full-blown site plan to bring in front of the planning board for site plan approval. That this site plan approval is what's going to give us the ability to go ahead and actually install this gravel road And again, we'll probably have to go through conservation as well. But this will give us the ability to cut this area down 20 feet and also do the fills required and come up with that excess material. So if there's no questions on that, we'll move forward with pushing this up to the planning board and conservation for approval. And then also,
One for that,
Yeah.
Peter. Just the crossing at Buffinville. Have you
Yes.
discussed anything with Army Corps?
no, I'm gonna kind of parallel track it and share this information with the DEP and the Army Corps like I've been doing in the past. So I'll probably
Okay.
try and set up a Zoom meeting with them in the near future, as long as the commission doesn't have any concerns. Share this same information with them, try and get their initial feedback and see what they have for input as well while we're moving forward.
Okay.
What's the cost situation at this point, budgeted versus, where we're actually at expenditure on this project? And are we going to come in under the grant, do we believe, to get that road in?
I think, Bob, that our scope allows us for $73 to actually begin construction of the roadway, correct?
70,000, yes.
So
Or somewhere around there, yep.
until we take the approved site plan, we're probably not going to know exactly what the bids come in at. And also, if we try and use the excess material as some type of bargaining chip with the potential contractor who's doing the work.
Right.
So, I mean,
School of thought. Do you want to elaborate on the school of thought of the cut, Peter, a little bit? That's mainly.
So I guess the biggest reason for trying to do the cut, one, is the excess material may have value for the contractor who's going to actually do the roadway work. The second, I guess, benefit to us is to drill the production wells. It's charged per foot. So by cutting 20 foot off of the top and drilling 5 wells, we're going to save approximately 100 feet of drilling costs, which will be like getting four wells drilled for the price of 1. So that's really, in my mind, those are the biggest 2 reasons to do that cut. And it also makes the access road much more navigable versus what's currently there with the slopes that are there currently.
Thank you.
Great. So I guess if there's no questions on those 2 things, Peter Newton's here to kind of give us an update on where we are in the process of actually permitting the wells and kind of what's left to do as well.
Hi, good evening, everyone. You've seen, I think some of you guys have seen this or something similar to this before. Just it's a rehash of the whole process to get a well sited, permitted. We have completed the exploratory phase, and we are in the second bullet item, the planning and permitting phase. So what we're working on now, and I had, because of the COVID situation, communications with DEP were a little slow. But I did finally speak to Sue Connor at DEP last week, and we now have kind of a direction to go in. What we're going to be basically doing is getting to preparing the prolonged pump test and request for site exam process for DEP. That's a fairly comprehensive document. It allows them the first kick at the can in terms of what we're proposing and what they want to see in terms of for testing, site evaluation. This is where they start looking at habitat issues, whether there are sensitive receptors nearby that they want us to pay attention to during the prolonged pumping test. But it's basically the first time the DEP will formally be involved in the permitting of this site. So I had was initially going down the approach of trying to do something informal, because it's very difficult for us to, normally you have the test wells drilled, but when you submit this and you know what pumping rate you know what the wells are going to produce basically, and you're running this test to validate that. Because of the constraints here at the site, we cannot get a rig in suitable for drilling the test wells the way the site, with site access the way it is right now. So there's a little bit of a cart and a horse here thing. So with my, based on my conversation with Susan, we are going to be submitting our proposed document, which includes proposed wells, well depths, and pumping rates, our proposed monitoring network, and giving them an opportunity to basically review something that is conceptual. It's a little, not usually the way it's done, but it'll be fine for here, for this project. And there aren't any major red flags. It's just putting the cart a little bit in front of the horse, as the way it's typically done. So my goal is to have that document prepared for submission, ready for submission to DEP by the end of September. I'll try to get it done quicker, but it's a pretty comprehensive document. And so I want to make sure that we've got all our I's dotted and T's crossed. So, and then following that, the DEP has 60 days to comment. We will meet at the site with them to go over the process, where the wells are going to go, where our pumping test discharge water is going to go, where our monitoring network is going to go. And then after that, they will come back and issue their approval to perform the test with some certain conditions for water quality monitoring. They want to see additional monitoring locations, physical water level monitoring locations, and that sort of thing. So there's still a lot of work to do. Once we get their approval, then we have all the site work to do before we can even do the test. So we still have there's still a pretty long road in front of us.
So you need that road in before you can do that testing, is that correct?
I do, because I can't get the rig in. I can't get a rig in that's suitable to perform that test with the way the access to the site is right now. As you know, Peter, it was very difficult to even get a track rig in because that little isthmus between where the wells are located and Gale Road is pretty narrow. Sides are pretty steep, and nobody is going to bring a large drilling rig capable of doing an 8-inch well for 120 feet out that road. So there's a lot of moving parts.
So Bob, is the site plan ready to be submitted to planning board, or is there more work that you need to do?
There's probably one or two things I want to double check on. We can go over those tomorrow if you have time, but I'd say within a week we'll probably be ready.
Good. So I guess timing wise, I guess to answer Mr. Donahue's question regarding funding, our current grant expires the end of October. By the time we get in front of planning board, which will probably be, if not their September meeting, which I think might be filling up, we probably get into their second September meeting or their October meeting, and probably won't have the site plan approved to do the work or even try and put it out to bid until the end of October. So therefore, we'll have to work with the state and try and get that grant extended again to next year, again with a revised scope. And hopefully we can have an actual bid price to put forward to them to actually do the entire access road at that time, probably starting next spring. Would probably be a realistic view of what we're going to be looking at.
And that timing works fine with me. We should have our approval to conduct the pump test well before that.
So if we can get everything ready, that means next year's scope of work would be access road and actual pump test at the one followed by the other.
Right.
And then we would have, then from there, we just start going down your checklist of the water supply development process.
Yep.
Try and finalize the actual water line route through through the Army Corps property and out to our
Right.
current infrastructure.
Right.
So,
Yeah, once we're off Army Corps land, it's fairly easy, but
Mhm.
there's 2 or 3 areas in the Army Corps land, we'll just have to coordinate with them. But they were willing to work with us. It didn't seem like
Yes.
there was gonna be an issue.
no, they've been very cooperative so far.
Right.
So again, I guess to discuss one of the, I'm not gonna say trickiest parts, but one of the more sensitive parts will be how we actually get across the spillway
Right.
and get onto Old Oxford Road.
Right.
And then
Yeah.
up through here, I think this will be on Army Corps' property, but I don't believe they have much there that we need to worry about.
Right.
So
Yeah, I think it's when you make that turn at the end, you've got that not retaining wall, but yeah, right along that. Where
like
we
a
make the turn right.
drainage
Yeah,
field,
a
they call it.
little further down. See where we loop around it. If you go north.
I'll go north, yeah.
Yeah.
Right here?
And then a little bit further, right up at the end there, right as we make the turn.
Yep.
Nope, keep going north. Yep, right there. There's a dike there that we need to kind of skirt around. So we
Okay.
just got to make sure there's nothing there. I don't think there is. I think it's okay. I think the spillway, we're far enough away from the dam, we should be okay. Because we had talked about maybe putting a pedestrian walkway and then hanging the main off of it. I mean,
Right
that's,
here, yes.
Yep, that's a possibility. If we
Right.
can loop up around that weir up at the top, and then we've got that little finger. I just want to double check with them on that finger that splits the reservoir. Just make sure there's no issue there as well.
Just wondering if the Army Corps says, no, we can't cross this, do we have a plan B?
We do have
So-
other options.
Does that include going through Oxford, going the other direction down Gale and around?
No, that was really never an option that was considered. I guess the only other option that we really discussed was directional drilling under Buffinville, coming out onto Dennis Wilbur Lane here and coming out to AF Putnam Road and following the road right up to Oxford Road. So far, none of the options that we've really considered have been into the town of Oxford and back out.
One of the noteworthy points of working with Army Corps of Engineers is that they in fact have a problem with their well down on, what is it, the public area down there, Peter?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
they'd be interested in this water supply as well. So it serves them to have us supply them with water. I'm sure they're interested in helping in this situation. It does help them.
I'm just
Not
wondering,
disturb-
did we look at the cost of doing direct drilling? It looks like we'll save a lot of line doing a direct drill, no?
Conceptually, we've discussed it. I'm not sure if it would be cost saving to do it that way versus running up this way. I guess, Bob, you can probably speak to the cost of directional drilling.
I mean, off the top of my head, I'd have to go back and double check. We looked at this almost a year ago, but yeah, going under it sounds simple, but it is, but you need a lot of geotechnical information, which we don't have right now. So we'd have to do a series of borings right across the lake, which we'd have to coordinate with Army Corps. And then you need a large launching pit on the east side, drilling under the lake, and then a receiving pit on the other side. So those pits are significant.
It's a big project. Okay.
So it sounds simple, but for an 8-inch main, it's a good size.
And
It's not impossible, but it's costly.
We would have to go over private property on the west side of the lake also to get us to AF Putnam Road. So we either have to secure an easement or purchase property to get us access to the roadway.
Right.
Okay.
So
And it
Plus
really
it-
doesn't
it-
save you a tremendous amount because the parallel mains coming up are similar. It's just when you loop around and you come across. So it's not a tremendous amount of linear foot savings.
Thank you.
So again, we will dual track this with planning board, conservation, and I'll also reach out to the DEP and Army Corps and try and set up a meeting with them, with Beta and Peter Newton also, to discuss where we're at and see what they have for input as well.
And one other thing, Peter, if you could, just, it doesn't have to be a memoir. If you could just send a brief update to those folks that were interested in the project, and
Yes,
give
actually-
them a
Yeah.
quick little synopsis as to what's going on, so that they feel informed and kept informed as we said we'd do.
Can do.
Thank you. All right,
Great.
Paul, go
I got
ahead.
a question in general about the excess fill. And I can think of a few reasons myself, but I would like to get the input from someone else as to reasons why we can't, instead of removing the excess fill, we just can't make a bigger flat spot at the top. And, you know, by spreading the fill out. Who can enlighten me as to, like I said, I got a few reasons myself that couldn't be done or shouldn't be done, but I'd like to know, there might be other reasons beyond those of which I thought of.
I think the biggest reason, one of the biggest reasons in flattening it off, Paul, and removing all of that material, is to try and strike a deal with someone that, best case scenario, wouldn't cost the town of Charlton money to put that access roadway in there. We would say, you're going to put the roadway in there and cut that down and remove the excess material. And for removing the excess material, you get it. And that is the trade-off. And the town of Charlton gets that roadway infrastructure done at a zero cost. That, in my mind, is the best scenario.
I don't think that by making that plateau larger will give us more room to drill more wells. So I'm not sure that just losing that fill over the edge of the banking to make a bigger flat spot helps us any other way than just having more, I guess, a bigger flat spot with more grass to mow.
But we couldn't even go towards the Army Corps of Engineers direction anyways with that fill, because then we'd go into their compensatory storage, right?
Oh, you're correct. We definitely. So we couldn't lose any of the fill, I guess, westerly, but there is that large crevice to the east of that knoll that could probably handle quite a bit of it, because that's a big hole there.
So a secondary question is, how about the leftover from the Exxon Mobil, maybe dropping that in there as a option too, you know, to use some of the fill that's left over from their project. We could just have them track it there.
We're gonna be pulling fill out, not bringing fill in.
I think that, Peter, that hole that you're talking about might serve as a good hole to fill in any subsoil and boulders and things like that that the company who's doing the work might not want to take.
Correct. And I'm not sure for the extra Exxon Mobil fill, it'll be worth the cost to truck it there. And I think the handling cost would be pretty large to do that.
I'm just wondering about if they're in the process, they're, you know, removing stuff from the road tops at this point in the near future. They're going to be grinding down, you said, is my understanding?
The grinding is almost done. So the road grindings are kind of outside the scope of excess material.
Okay.
The contractor doing the road grinding is actually taking all of the grindings, except for what Albanese Brothers might need to do. I guess some road work or some backing up of roads as part of their contract.
Just trying to think outside the box.
Yeah.
Peter, if I might, it's very important to remember that we're talking about a public water supply here. If for no other reason, there are pretty strict prohibitions against the type of fill you can bring in. It has to be basically certified, suitable for public water supply use. You wouldn't want to bring in road grindings. You wouldn't want to bring in any materials that were of questionable provenance. You know, something that comes from the Exxon Mobil site. I don't know anything about it, but I know enough to know the Exxon Mobil is a spill site. Would be probably not, it would certainly raise eyebrows even if it wasn't perfect, perfectly suitable stuff. So we just have to be a little bit careful about getting down the road. We remember that this is going to be a public water supply location, and we have to start thinking about protection.
Makes a lot of sense, Peter. Thank you.
Sure.
There are a number of wetlands in there as well, so you're a little bit bound on what you can do there.
Peter, do you need anything from the commission to bring this in front of the planning board or not?
I don't believe so, no. Just as long as you don't have any, I guess, comments or, I guess, alter ideas or different things you'd like to see, then no, we're all set to go.
You need a motion or anything?
I don't believe so, unless you want to make it official, but I don't think that's necessary.
All right. Well, if no one has any further questions for Beta on this, and or Peter Newton, we'll we can move on and let these gentlemen enjoy the rest of the.
Very good. All right, Pete, I'll reach out to you in the morning, mid-morning work.
Yeah, I think I have a 9:30 and a 10, so anything after that.
10:30, 11,
Sure.
somewhere around there.
Probably
Okay.
11 would be great.
11 o'clock. All right. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Okay,
you.
have a good night, gentlemen.
All right.
You too.
All right. HVAC replacement, Peter?
Yes, so over the last couple of years, we've been having some issues with our HVAC replacement, with the HVAC system. As far as annual repairs to the AC unit located outside and also to the heating system that's inside. So 2 weeks ago, EDS Mechanical, who is doing our HVAC repair company, was out to fix the AC unit because we lost AC for a couple of days. They keep telling us that the current system is over 20 years old. It is still charged with refrigerant, but the compressor itself burnt out the capacitor. And he said that it's drawing the motor's drawing a lot of amps, like one leg of the motor is gone. So they recommend that we replace it. And again, they've also recommended we've replaced it. I got quotes 2 years ago to do the same work. So I got 3 new quotes from the same 3 companies. They have increased a little bit, but EDS is still the lowest to replace both the heating and air conditioning system. And their cost is $11,400. And that is a new forced hot air propane heating unit with air conditioning unit and AC coil built into that as well. So I just kind of wanted to put that in front of you guys and see what your thoughts are, whether or not we be a little proactive and replace it before it finally fails and we need to have it done as an emergency, or just say, you know what, we've gotten 20, 22 years out of it. Thank you for your service and let's replace it and move on. The price doesn't seem to be, I think, too high where you say it's too much of a cost to replace. And again, this heating system also is the HVAC for the lab where Veolia does all of their testing also. So that room needs to be kept right about 70 degrees all the time.
Is there any funding in the Green Communities Act for any of this, Peter?
No, we could probably wait for the next round of funding to try and put something in, but I don't, not at this time.
When is that next round of funding?
Probably next fiscal year. Everything's been thrown off because of the COVID, so my guess is we won't see that until we're in FY21. The next round probably won't be out till FY22 unless they do a half-year round based on what's going on. So, I mean, it is working. If you want to wait, and I can reach out to Kara tomorrow in the selectman's office. She's the one that coordinates all the green community stuff, and go from there. So we're still working on what we received last year from the green communities to do the EQ tank blower upgrade, which should be starting momentarily. They've extended that work to be able to be completed by the end of September, rather than at the end of last fiscal year on June 30th. So
Can you check with Kara and bring this back up at our next meeting? And
yep, no, I can definitely follow up with Kara, see, or probably maybe reach out to green communities myself, because I'll be asking her about the blower upgrade, and then see when she thinks the next round of grant funding might be coming out.
okay, is everyone else fine with that?
Depends on the condition, Peter. I mean, do you find that it's workable in the lab at this point? Because that would be a real problem if that temperature starts going up to 80 degrees, 90 degrees on you.
Yeah, no, I think it's workable. Luckily, I have 3 new valid quotes, so if it does happen to fail where it needs to be repaired, we just maybe be 2 or 3 days for EDS to get the equipment and replace it. So I think we can kind of leave it be as is, let it run, and if something major happens, then we may just have to do it sooner than later, and not get to make that decision.
Can I put something out there, which would be that should Peter find that this situation isn't working, that he has the ability to replace it at this time before we go to the community? Just put a motion on the floor for that. Is that based
Sure.
on? Okay, so I'd like to put a motion forward that we accept the quote of EDS in an emergent situation based on Peter's judgment to replace the heating and cooling system for $11,480.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
All right, any more discussion? Roll call vote then?
Mr. Donahue,
Aye.
Mr. Cantwell,
Aye.
Mr. Gagner,
Aye.
Mr. Jennings.
Aye.
All right.
Very good.
So that's good. I'll get that groundwork going, and I'll let you know next meeting what I find out about the Green Communities grant.
Thank you. All right, next, water main repair on Route 20.
Yes, so as I mentioned in the email last week, we had 2 water main breaks during the pressure testing of the inactive water line on Route 20. So as part of the work Albanese Brothers is doing for ExxonMobil, ExxonMobil wanted the inactive portion of water line between Northside Road and Old Worcester Road pressure tested in case they wanted to activate that in the future. So for now, as they were pressure testing the inactive line, they noticed that the pressure gauge dropped down to nothing. And after that, we also developed a leak in the pressure on the active main, just, I guess, west of Northside Road on Route 20. So we were able to have the active line repaired, and that's completed. And I'll try and just show exactly where it was. So the active water main break was here. Water flows down Northside Road and west on Route 20. The inactive water main break, we're pretty sure, is right on this 8-inch lateral going from the main over to the industrial park on Route 20. That still needs to be repaired, and kind of needs to be done fairly soon because they're currently milling Route 20 and they plan on repaving Route 20 in September. So what we found as we were digging, you can see the water main there was leaking out the bottom. So as they exposed the 12-inch water main on Route 20, the active line just west of Northside Road, the pipe was very corroded on the bottom of the pipe. There were some good-sized pinholes that were currently there. When the inactive water main broke, it must have sent some type of shock wave down the pipe, and caused it to split along the bottom of the pipe. In this picture, you can see some of the larger holes where the pipe has been corroded away. And then you can see the split that developed on the bottom. You can also, on this bell area of the pipe, see how much of that pipe is also corroded. So that active water line has been repaired, but some of the water line that's currently there is still not the best. So it's not something that we're done investigating at this time. And we also need to still go ahead and work on this inactive water main break over the next couple of weeks and get that repaired as well. So I guess as I'm working with Chris McClure to, again, identify what happened at the active portion of the water main break. And I guess I don't want to say looking forward to, but I'm interested to see as we dig the inactive water main portion and see what caused that break to happen, if the pipe is corroded the same way, or if there's a completely different reason for that water main leak there. So there, again, I included a bunch of the pictures in your packet as well for those of you who can't see the computer screen.
Peter, is that that water main break that's active right now, is that scheduled to be fixed anytime soon? Do we have it on the schedule?
That's what we're gonna, I guess if I was hoping to get your authorization to fix that inactive portion of water main over the next couple of weeks. Because the road's gonna be repaved, it's somewhat an emergency situation, because once the road's repaved, it'll be tough to get authorization from Mass Highway or Mass DOT to dig in Route 20.
So I've been working with Peter on this info in this situation. I did stop out the night that they were working on this pipe that actually broke to take a look to see what was going on. And I think it's a very, very involved set of circumstances, and a lot of it has to deal with the state and how that road was built. And going back over some simple history, you'll see there's many layers of gravel in that Peter that has that picture that Peter had up on the screen there. And the reason why there's many layers of gravel is because when Route 20 was redone, they found that the material they were going to pave on was unsuitable. So they added another couple feet to the roadway of suitable material that they could pave over. When they did this, they took a water line that was supposed to be 5 or 6 feet deep maximum and put it down 9 or 10 feet deep now in certain sections like this one. So we have that as one problem. The next problem we have is you can see a lot of staining in that gravel where water is continuing to run down from the top of the road and go down to the pipe level, which is a very bad situation when you're using road salt or when you have corrosive material, maybe in the soil such as Charlton. So it's a compound situation there that all of which is going to take a little investigation by Chris McClure to get started in the right direction to potentially approach the state to say, we have a problem here and we may be at the very beginning of this problem with a water line that was installed by the state X number of years ago, and now Charlton is going to have to live with the problem. Well, I don't think it's Charlton's problem to have to live with. The state bears the responsibility in a number of different ways, and we just have to do a little investigation work before we approach them so we can get it headed in the right direction when we go there. And I think fixing the other break will give us some more insight on that length of water line to see what's going on and potentially get more information to go to the state with and say, guys, you guys have a problem with the roadway that's impacting our water line. So it's going to take a little bit to get the information, but the first step is fixing, or the next step is fixing that other break, which has to be done. And it has to be done in a timely fashion, like Peter stated.
The question I have is, while the roadway's open because they're paving, is it worth even checking out a random site, to see if this is corrosion corrosive all the way down the whole line? This is a line that we're talking about connecting into from Buffum eventually.
I think that could be possible, but we know we have one other break right now, so that's the first place to start. Fix that, and by our next meeting, if that is fixed, we'll have more information and have done more legwork to get headed in that direction, and maybe do what you just suggested, Phil.
Yeah, because we have a narrow window here because of the paving.
That's not necessarily true. So the paving is going to take place from Richardson's Corner Road westerly to Route 31. We have the same water line installed from Richardson's Corner Road easterly to the town line on Oxbow, and that portion of Route 20 is going to be redone next year.
Okay.
So we do have some time to let them pave this area and go, I guess, further east of Richardson's Corner Road and do some test holes in that portion of Route 20 where the main might not be so deep. And they're also going to be totally redoing the road next year anyways.
So that pipe has been sent out for metallurgic testing by McClure or not?
No, I think McClure was more focused on trying to figure out what the soil materials were and what type of impact that had, not so much the pipe that was removed.
It would be interesting to see what the original specs on that pipe are versus what it looks like now, what the mill's thickness is, how much actually wore out, because some of it can be internally too, that's another possibility.
I have a piece of the pipe here. From what we could see, it didn't seem to be internal because it's a cement lined ductile pipe. So it seemed like the cement lining was the only thing holding that bottom portion of the pipe together. And then, like I said, when the inactive portion of main broke, it must have sent some type of shock wave that just let that cement lining crack and totally fracture the rest of it.
Okay. Now I understand the dynamics of how it worked. Okay, what cracked it. Okay. Thank you, Peter.
Sure. So if there's no objection, I'll work with Mr. Jennings.
At this point in time, we really need the board to authorize you to deal with a contractor to fix that second area.
Correct.
Yes. Do we put that out to bid?
I'm not sure we have enough time to really solicit bids for that because of the paving of Route 20. So because it's somewhat of an emergency basis, I'll double check with the town administrator about the procurement, but we should just be able to hire a capable contractor and get it done. Because in order to have it bid and draw up some type of spec sheet will take time, and then to wait and get the bids, I don't want to miss the window to actually have the repair done. So I'll confirm with him that we can bypass that step and you just use sound business practices.
So a motion to allow for emergency repairs on the water line on the north side, I believe that is, at the industrial park.
It'll be Route 20.
Route 20.
Near the industrial park. Yeah.
The industrial park.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion?
just that we put it out as emergent and repairs, added to the motion.
Very good.
Roll
none.
call vote,
Roll call.
Mr. Donahue,
Aye.
Mr. Gagner,
Aye.
Mr. Cantwell,
Aye.
Mr. Jennings.
Aye.
So we, as far as funding goes, we still haven't received the invoice for the repair that was done on the active line last week. That was coordinated by Southbridge Water as they operate that portion of the system. Our annual budget, we carry $50,000 for capital repairs, which both of these repairs will fall under. In talking to the finance director and the town administrator at our last department head meeting, I informed them of what was taking place and told them that if by some strange reason we go over that $50,000, we will be asking them for a reserve fund transfer, which they're allowed to vote and do if we need more money to fund these two repairs. And then at the fall town meeting, at the special town meeting, we could do a transfer from our water stabilization fund to reimburse them for the reserve fund transfer and probably replenish our $50,000 capital line item in case something else were to happen in the future.
Can you check our operating agreement with Southbridge and see if there's any funding in there?
So there's
Peter?
funding, yes, there's a certain amount of funding for annual repairs that's approximately averages $14,000 to $16,000 per year based on the percentage of our customers versus their customers and what they spend in their budget. But
Yep.
4 weeks ago, we had that Route 20 water line repair on the 4-inch out near Sturbridge that ate that up.
Okay.
So that's already depleted.
Yep. Okay.
So it's been a kind of a strange year for water line repairs.
Sure.
I'm still curious about whether or not McClure and hanging on to that piece of metal that if they had that pipe, maybe even the company that pulled it out, if it shouldn't be, hung on to for further examination if necessary.
I have a piece here, and I know Southbridge Water has 2 more pieces. I don't have the large piece that I took a picture of, but I have a smaller piece. It's probably 12 inches long of the 12-inch pipe.
The cross section.
Yes. Yep. It shows right about where that crack began. And you can kind of see some of the corrosion on the outside of the pipe. So I have that in worse, but Southbridge said they were going to keep that other portion and label it. So
Yeah, you should probably just reiterate that you want it kept. If not, you'll
Yep.
take.
no, I can probably go pick it up for sure.
Okay, I think
And again, especially this bell end, you can see how much of the outside of that pipe that has corroded. So I think it's going to be I'm hoping it's an isolated instance that happened here based on maybe organic materials it was buried in, plus the infiltration of salt water from above. As you can see in the other pictures that show the staining from the corrosion from the drainage layer above, maybe seeped down and just caused a perfect storm for that pipe to corrode the way it did. But again, time will tell as we go ahead and dig up the other water main break over by the industrial park in the near future.
Is there a sort of line near that or a sewer drain near that? Was there any undercutting, like water
No.
flow? You might have a leak from their system.
No, there is
There
no.
There was a drain line above it, Phil, that
Yeah.
we're trying to figure out at this point in time. That's part of the questioning. And just to give you a little history on this, I have seen the situation before where heavy road salt infiltration
Yeah.
did this to a pipe and did it to a gate valve. Literally ate the bolts off a gate valve, cut the pipe wide open, and it was because of heavy road salt infiltration. Being that this is down 9 feet deep, how would the water and salt get down there is the question. And that brings us back to the situation of Mass DEP or Mass Highway owning the drainage lines above us and allowing that to go down into our water line.
That's what I was thinking myself as we were looking at this, is whether there was a drainage line for the state above that and it might have a leak in it. So
Yeah, so that's part of the legwork that we're trying to get Chris McClure to start on. But we don't want to. Why would we spend all our time and energy and money figuring out the state's problem instead of saying to the state, "You guys have a problem, figure it out."
Russ,
I don't want to spend money on their problem.
that drain layer that showed the staining is approximately 5 feet from the surface
Yeah.
as I look at the picture. So it'll be an interesting discussion for sure.
oh yeah.
Yep.
Thanks.
So I spoke with Chris today, and he is in the process of putting some stuff together for this, and
Okay.
can only hope that when we dig up over by the industrial park, it's a completely different set of circumstances.
I do hope so, and I hope that line's going to be a lot shallower. But there's only one way to find out. So. All right, gentlemen, if there's nothing further on that, you want to move on to the water rate? Oh, no, I'm sorry, Chapter 61A, Peter? Hello?
I can't hear him.
Peter, I think your thing's on mute.
Peter?
Technical difficulty.
All right, is that better?
Yeah, that's better.
All right, sorry about that. My headphones ran out of power. So, Mr. Gunter is requesting that to remove those 3 parcels out of Chapter 61A. It's approximately 6.5 acres of land. And again, the Board of Selectmen, because it was in 61A, has the right of first refusal to purchase the parcels if they deem it necessary on behalf of the town, and they ask for all departments to weigh in if they have a need. At this time, again, it's a very nice portion of land. There is some question on whether or not we could do a bedrock well in the area, but to have to invest probably quite a bit of money to buy 3 buildable lots, I'm not sure it's worth our investment at this time.
So motion to decline.
Again, I guess the motion would be to recommend to the Board of Selectmen that they not authorize their right of first refusal on these parcels.
Motion as stated by Peter.
I'll second. Russ, you there? No. Any discussion?
He's back.
Yep, I'm back. Any further discussion?
All right.
Hearing none, roll call vote.
Mr. Donahue?
Aye.
Mr. Gagner?
Aye.
Mr. Cantwell?
Aye.
Mr. Dennis?
Aye.
All right.
All right. Next, water rate study?
Yeah, so this is to just finalize the water rate study that the Abrahams Group completed for us. We've discussed this information before, but Mr. Abrahams finally gave us a final report for review that pretty much, again, references what we discussed, that if we could negotiate a reduced rate from the town of Southbridge, a flat rate of $2.50 per 100 cubic feet, it could be possible that we could operate the system. It would be financially feasible for us to operate the system. In the past, you've authorized me to start negotiations with the town of Southbridge to try and get that rate reduced. Because the current town manager is almost done and they're in the process of hiring a new town administrator, I've not been able to discuss this any further than with the DPW director herself. So, and also in some of your last discussions, even with the reduced rate, the surplus that we'd be looking at is approximately how much Southbridge pays us annually now for them operating the system. So you didn't seem inclined to take on all of the extra risk or responsibilities to operate the system to possibly make the system out in the revenue. Really just to kind of, it's not the final chapter by any means, but it's kind of just a point to bookend the scope of work of the Abrahams to let them know that what they've done is complete and the information they presented is pretty much what we were looking for. Does anybody have, I guess, anything else they want me to do to follow up on this as far as where it sits right now?
I think tonight's a perfect example of why we must follow up on it and try for this. I mean, here we've already agreed to fix all the pipes at our expense, and yet we have no income for water. And I don't know how it came about that way, but that's the way it is. And tonight's a good example of why we might need some capability to have income coming in from water.
I do. I agree with that. But in order to make it work, I guess I'm not just going to put this away, but as soon as the new town manager comes into Southbridge and I can work with the DPW director to kind of put this in front of whoever that might be to see if we can get them on board, we'll be able to push it further up the chain to try and get this going. So.
I think you're both right, and I think long term, Paul, we're headed in your direction. Peter, I think that short term, you do go at the next town administrator or town manager and continue the discussion. Just keeping the door open and keeping the discussion ongoing, so that Southbridge continues to work with us and wants to help us develop long-term plan to stand on our own 2 feet and help us financially to get there by reducing the rate of the water. And that's long-term and short-term. But we need to develop a good long-term plan to make Charlton stand on its own 2 feet. And we earlier discussed one of those starting steps is that work down at Bufferville. So it is in the works, and any help that Southbridge can give us is greatly appreciated.
A question there. How long is the current contract with Southbridge in effect? The agreement?
10 years.
I thought it was a 20-year agreement that started in 14 or 15.
So that gives
I
us.
thought it was another 10 years. I thought it was through 2030. Is that not correct?
Let me try and pull it up. So the current IMA was signed on April of 2015. It's gonna probably take me a second to find the term. And granted, there were IMAs before this one that have since gone away. So the current IMA allows us to take up to 500,000 gallons per day. It also released all of the ownership of Southbridge's infrastructure in the town of Charlton to us. Term.
Maybe
Under the
maybe you
agreement,
can.
it's 25 years.
It's 25 years.
Yep. And I don't see
So-
anything about any extension. So you're looking from 2015 to 2040.
2040 is our end date.
And
Okay.
you get to set the rates during that period of time. That's correct?
What was the question, Phil? Sorry.
They get to set the rates during that period of
Yep.
time. Okay. Just want to double check and I have my information correct in my head. Thank you.
Yeah, it's 25 years.
Oh, that's 10 years longer than I thought we had, but still there is an end date. So naturally, we need to do a lot of future thinking.
Yeah, I don't think any of us wants to try and be here to renegotiate this in 25 years or in 10 years or 20 years. So
I'm not so sure about that, Peter. There's some of us a little older that wouldn't mind being around 25 years from now.
not that you're not going to be here, but just that you're going to have to try and negotiate it. Hopefully we're all here. Just
Interjecting a little humor.
just be doing something different. That's all.
This is why we take minutes so that 25 years from now you can remember, Phil.
Yeah.
Ah, very good. That
Well,
might be tomorrow's a problem.
Find them. All right. So again, my plan is to kind of, as far as the Abrahams group go, they completed their scope of work for what we asked them to do as part of that water rate study. They've proven, I guess, in that the town of Southbridge would make more money charging us the reduced rate, which was our whole goal. So we could use that to help us negotiate the rate down. That's not going to change. So as the new town manager comes in, let whoever that is get comfortable and then try and open up this discussion with them as well and see where we can make that go, hopefully in the next 6 months to a year.
If we can't get it, I think you might want to look at maybe adding a penny, to the, what is it, HCF, and see if you can't use that as a little more funding in the bank for us to have just for that contingency,
The thought process, moving forward, was that we didn't want to charge the Charlton customers any more than what they're already paying, just because we're operating the system. So it was always trying to figure out how to make it financially feasible, charging the exact same rate that Southbridge currently charges them now. So if we were to increase that base rate without increasing what we charge Charlton customers, we don't want to operate in the negative either.
Yeah, I was thinking just adding a penny is what I was talking about. You know, it would bring in $20,000 a year contingent funds. Just a thought.
Well, that's always something we can consider. And we'll if we'd like to consider that, Bill, we can definitely bring it up in the future.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, you know, what Paul was saying about, you know, how much money we got in the bank, you know, earlier, and, you know, how do we increase the contingency fund? Well, if you're adding 1 penny, it's going to probably add to the average bill, not a whole lot, but some of the heavy users, it might bring it up a teeny bit, and it would give us just a little extra wiggle room.
Don't forget too, if we wait too long to make any decision, we're gonna lose the $2,000 per house hookup fee that Southbridge will be charging quite soon.
Well, that was where we came into getting those letters out, you know, certified and letting everybody know, hey, listen, hook up, okay? You know, I think that's, you know, something that should be done sooner than later myself, quite honestly.
I think, Paul, I think you gentlemen are discussing two separate topics.
Okay, sorry.
No, that's all right. I think Paul is discussing if we were to become consecutive and take the fees over for the connections when they were made, then that would be our money instead of going to Southbridge, which we receive. What is the percentage on that, Peter?
20% to 20%.
Okay.
Okay.
I understand. Yeah, I do have that concept in my head, but I didn't realize that that's what he was talking about. Sorry.
But the only problem in getting to that point is we would have to be consecutive prior to that. And I think at this point in time, we've probably missed the boat on that. And to get started and get fired up and geared up for being consecutive for that reason at this point in time, I think we've thrown around the discussion and said at the end of the day, taking it over and winding up with $150,000, $200,000 is not worth the risk of taking over the water line at this point in time.
Well,
I think that was consensus.
Yeah, I concur with you 100%, Lee, on that. At this point, you know, we don't know what's going on with the pipes as they currently are, and we're not sure on what the bill is going to be on, you know, going if we went independent, you know.
Yep.
So, what would be involved in, you know, structuring a total consecutive deal with Southbridge? I mean, I saw some drawbacks when I was reading one of the studies from WPI. They did in 2017. This is a big study they did on the water system, and they highly suggested that we don't become consecutive.
Well, I think that the feeling of Southbridge overall is that they would ultimately love to see Charlton standing on its own 2 feet.
Well, it makes sense from the standpoint of the study that I was reading today, because it was talking about in a drought situation, who's going to supply and where are we at, you know, as far as dependence.
Yeah.
So, just aside.
So I think we are at the point of taking the first steps and heading in that direction, and we just keep taking bites of the elephant, one bite at a time.
Well, you know, from the standpoint of Buffum, if that becomes so that it's not fully viable for any reason, I mean, then there's always the looking at the surface water, which would not make some Charlton residents happy, like South Lake or something like that. You know, and that's one of the other possibilities that we have in town. From one of the other studies that was done last year by WPI.
I think we've also started this, or I've talked with Peter time and time again about different sources, and I think maybe we should throw that on the agenda for next time, Peter.
Okay.
Yeah, can I strongly suggest, Peter, those two studies that I sent to you today, that you send them to the board, because they both give full board information of what the different water systems here are that were done by WPI, and also the infrastructure of the Charlton water system. They examined pretty significantly.
That would be great. Thank you, Phil.
I'm trying to come up to speed. Thank you for bringing me up to speed.
Sounds like you're heading in a great direction. You've taken over the zinc study. Any questions, I'm going to ask you now. So I appreciate it.
Well, one less headache for you. One more for Peter.
Yep. No.
Sorry, Peter.
No. Really is a big undertaking with this whole system and potentially building this water system. So it's going to take a lot of hands on it.
Real quick, getting back to what Phil was talking about, I think you were talking about sending out the registered letters to the people about hooking up. They had 1 year to hook up.
Yep.
Peter, did we discuss that we are going to do that?
Yes,
Okay.
but that 1 year window has not happened yet. So
When that's going to start when they're done the road? Is that when that starts?
that's going to start when the water line is active. And that water line has not been activated yet.
Is there a time frame for that?
The overlook has to come online first, so hopefully that happens in the next week to 10 days. Once the overlook is run for a couple of weeks with no problems, they can send flow through that new school loop that was created and see how that goes. And then after that, they can probably start making connections. I don't believe that ExxonMobil has finalized their agreement or the extension of their current contract to Albany yet for installing those services. So I'm not sure if they're going to start happening this year or if they're just going to kind of wait, put it on the shelf again next year in the spring.
And they're giving us formal notice as to when they're complete.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we should
So
just
they
prep
have-
for that. I'm assuming we have all the names of every customer that have a water line in front of their house and all that stuff, I would assume, right?
Kleinfelder has master.
I think we would go ahead and get that list from the assessor's office based on which roads are there and who abuts those roadways.
Okay.
All right. So is that also the school loop and Bay Path and Overlook pump station update as well, Peter?
Pretty much. I just, again, wanted to follow up at our last meeting during the water line construction update. You asked about the excess material. Just to kind of get that information on record, I've attached a copy of the response from Tim Burrill, the engineer with Kleinfelder. He's provided excerpts from the Charlton water main specifications regarding the handling of excess material that was mentioned at the last meeting. And in his email, he states that no excess material has left the town. As far as the grindings go, that's a different animal. That's outside the scope of excess material. And that's a different agreement with the subcontractor who's doing that road.
Sure.
So if there's no follow-up questions on that, we can kind of put that to rest.
Thanks for following up on that, Peter. I wanted to make sure that I had been asked that question by a lot of different people, and it's good to get an answer, get that on record, and also remove any doubt from the situation, so temptation's not there when the subject comes up that, okay, there is excess material, where's it going? So
Now, if
thank
anyone
you for,
has something different, please let me know and I can follow up on it, but right now, that's what I have. And again, as far as the school loop goes, Albanese Brothers continues to pave the roads affected by the water line construction installed last year. As you know, Mugget Hill Road is done. L. Stevens Road is done. They're going to be moving on. Morton Station Road is complete, and they're going to be moving on to Old Worcester Road, I believe, this week or next week, depending on the paver schedule, the contractor's schedule. The Bay Path and Overlook pump stations, they did the site walk at the Overlook pump station last week. Everything went well. They're trying to just coordinate the time to get that pump station active and get the water flowing up to the Overlook. And again, as I said, we're hoping that happens within the next 7 to 10 days. Other than that, that's all I have.
perfect. No other business at the unknown at the time of posting from anyone?
I have one question. Okay, the riser caps that were put in, I guess there were 2 there. Okay. Rob Lemansky would love this one. Is that being reimbursed by the that department for adding those riser caps in or not?
I couldn't really hear you, Phil. I'm sorry.
We have 2 riser caps that were put in on the sewer pumps.
For sewer, yes, those sewer pump risers were invoiced to their respective departments.
Rob Lemansky would love to hear that one. That was one of his favorites.
He might be listening. He might be excited. Rob, are you there? No answer. Thank you for that answer, Peter.
All right.
And thank you for assuming that role, Phil.
Okay.
Some big shoes to fill.
Yeah. Hey, I just wanted to mention, I took a drive past the Stevens Road pump station, and things look pretty good down there compared to the way they looked a month ago, for sure.
Yeah, so once that's done, the fence should be done this week. I'll have some pictures and stuff set up for your next meeting to give you a final report on that repair, but everything went fairly well. It took a little bit longer than I think the contractor anticipated, but the end result should be pretty good to help with definitely what was happening there.
Thank you, Peter, for your hard work.
Thank you.
Thank you, Peter and Sue. And if that is it, then our next meeting is going to be August 24th. Is that correct?
Yes. Yep.
All right. And with that, I guess the only thing left is a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second the motion. Sorry.
Roll call vote.
All right, Mr. Donahue.
Aye.
Mr. Gagner.
Aye.
Mr. Cantwell.
Aye.
And Mr. Jennings.
Aye.
All right.
Good. Thank you all. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.